So terrorism and wine tourism, the recent case of France. This is a work in progress joint with Olivier. In this paper, we try to analyze econometrically the main drivers to explain the number of visitors in a cultural institution located in Bordeaux, which is a wine museum, so called La Cité du Vin, which has opened in June 2016. And we measure the number of visitors per day, and this is what we would like to explain. Sure, sorry. So of course, there are several determinants, and we would like to focus on the potential impact of terrorist attacks that France have experienced recently. So beyond the prediction model, we can use a time series approach, and it provides a good way to forecast the number of visitors per day. But beyond this kind of model, we would like to measure the impact of terrorist attacks. Bordeaux is maybe a natural application for to study this kind of question. Bordeaux has received more than 7 million visitors last year. Visitors, generally speaking, the number of wine tourists is hard to estimate. The Cité du Vin has had 400,000 visitors last year. If we focus on terrorist attacks and their effect on tourism, we will see with the next paper that there are some negative effects which are well documented in the literature, but maybe also some positive ones. So a direct negative impact of terrorism, but maybe some also positive indirect effect. Our hypotheses are the following one. It's well documented in the literature that the effect of terrorism is negative, of course, with a huge decrease of tourists, with a recovery after several months, with sometimes with a lag. It's not an immediate, a contemporaneous effect, but probably what we expect here is a negative effect. We also use related literature about number of visitors in cultural institutions or museum attendance, this kind of literature. Weather is usually included to explain the number of visitors. There is also one paper about the effect of the presence in the city of a cruise ship. This is a case in Bordeaux. There are maybe something like 50 cruise ships per year. In the motion picture industry, it has been shown that bank holidays or school holidays have an effect, a positive one. And we also use here for this empirical analysis some Google Trends index. It's recent in the tourism literature, but it's probably a good way to forecast the number of visitors. So we will use Google Trends index related to the Cité du Vin and to terrorist attacks in Bordeaux. So our data, so as I have said previously, we have the number of visitors at La Cité du Vin per day since the opening till the end of last year. We have the number of opening hours per day. It's on average 8 hours, sometimes depending on the season, it's 7, it's 9. We have information about the weather, average temperature per day, and if it's a rainy day or not. This is a yes-no variable. We will use some dummy variables for school holidays and bank holidays. We also take into account this new infrastructure with a high-speed train between Bordeaux and Paris. Before July the 1st, 2017, it was more than 3 hours between Bordeaux and Paris. And since this date, it's 2 hours. So it probably can change things about tourism, tourist profile, and so on. Cruise ships, as I have said previously, and also French and foreign passengers at the Bordeaux airport, just to maybe control for the attractivity of the city. So we also introduced some Google Trend indices to capture the interest of people around the globe for this museum, for La Cité du Vin, but also for the Bordeaux city. So as you see here, there is so we have weekly data produced by Google Trends. You see the graph here with the different, this is an index, the intensity of searches. This is not the number of searches, this is a measure of the intensity. And we see that it evolved. The red line is for Bordeaux, the blue one is for La Cité du Vin. So of course here, depending on the scale, it looks like something very stable for La Cité du Vin. But we see that there are some variations. And we also try to capture maybe the fear of people or the concern of people about terrorism in France. We have computed an average of the Google Trend Index for several keywords in French and in English for terrorism, for ISIS, for different things. And so here we have weekly scores, and we include them in our regression. Before showing the results of the regression, here just the evolution since the opening. So June 2016, number of visitors per day at La Cité du Vin. So we see a clear, probably seasonal pattern. So a clear one, maybe with months. And there is also another one that we can see here with this autocorrelogram. As you see, there is one seasonality every 5 days, so that's for the weekend. And we also have a strong first and second order autocorrelation. The results are here. So again, this is a work in progress. This is a work in progress. So we have the number of visitors with a lag, T-1, T-2. We have the weekend, which is significant. Number of open hours. Temperature is not significant. But probably I haven't the graph here, but when you plot a graph with the number of visitors and the average temperature, depending on the season, it's highly correlated. So here we have the regression results for our whole sample. Probably that a regression per season or something like that will show that temperature is significant depending on the season. Rain is very significant and positive. School and bank holidays are significant. The high-speed train also. Cruise ship are not. French passengers is significant. Foreign passengers is not. And then we have the Google Trend Index for La Cité du Vin, which is a lag variable, T-8, because we have, so it's 8 days, but we have weekly data for the Google indexes. So this is why here we have T-8 and T-16, so it means last week and 2 weeks before. Okay? We see that the intensity of the search on Google is significant when we focus on T-8, so last week searches. And then here we have, the effect of the intensity of search on Google about terrorism in France. So here, again, this is an average of that index. And we see that it's significant. It's significant and negative. T-8, T-16, same idea. Last week, 2 weeks ago. Okay? Here we are, to be honest, we are not completely sure with these results. For instance, when we include T-24, this one is not significant, but T-8 last week becomes non-significant. What remains significant is T-16, so intensity of searches about terrorism in France 2 weeks ago. The effect, we have log variables on the right and left-hand side, so it's a kind of an elasticity. It's not very high, but it's negative and significant. So to conclude, our model predicts museum attendance in a satisfactory way. We have that autocorrelation, which is high. We have a clear weekly seasonality. And terrorism has a short-run negative impact on attendance at La Cité du Vin with this low elasticity. So we are still working on the database. We need to apply a more rigorous time series approach. Probably we have to check for the existence of a unit root. We have to maybe try some other specifications. Especially what I believe is that we have this complex seasonal pattern with something with the months and something with every weekend. So we have to find the right model. So there is something called BATS for Box and Jenkins approach with the trend and the seasonality and the trigonometric version of that thing. So we are working on that. And maybe we can use also a more developed Google Trend Index to capture concern about terrorism. Thank you for your attention.